The moment Marcus Johnson stepped into that store, he never imagined his life would become a catalyst for national change. A decorated Marine, he had faced enemy fire, survived wounds that earned him the Purple Heart, and carried the weight of service with quiet pride. But on that ordinary day, he was met with a different kind of battle, one fought not on foreign soil, but in the aisles of a place that should have welcomed him. What happened next would expose the deep fractures in society, challenge perceptions, and prove that courage isn't always found on the battlefield. Sometimes it's found in the grace with which we respond to injustice. The air was thick with tension as Marcus Johnson, a decorated Marine veteran, walked into a high-end clothing store in downtown Chicago. He had just come from a veteran support group and was dressed casually: jeans, a hoodie, and his favorite pair of boots. He wasn't there to cause trouble. He just wanted to buy a nice shirt for his daughter's graduation. But within minutes, the manager approached him, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," the man said, voice dripping with disdain. Marcus frowned. "Excuse me, you've been lingering too long, and honestly, you're making the staff uncomfortable." Marcus's stomach dropped. He knew exactly what this was about. He wasn't lingering. He was browsing, just like every other customer. But his skin color, his tattoos, his muscular frame, they had already convicted him in their minds. The other shoppers glanced over, some whispering, others pretending not to notice. The humiliation burned, but Marcus had faced worse, much worse. Instead of arguing, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his military ID. Then, slowly, he unbuttoned his hoodie just enough to reveal the deep scar on his chest, a permanent reminder of the IED blast that nearly took his life in Afghanistan. "You see this?" he said, voice steady but fierce. "This is what suspicious looks like after it's been blown apart for this country. And this," he held up his Purple Heart medal, the light glinting off its gold edges. "This is what they give you when you almost die for people who treat you like a criminal in your own damn country." Double quote silence. The manager's face went pale. A woman nearby gasped. A young employee looked like he might cry. Then, something unexpected happened. An older white man in a suit stepped forward, a customer Marcus hadn't even noticed. "Son," the man said, voice shaking with anger, "I don't know you, but I know what that medal means. My brother earned one in Vietnam." He turned to the manager. "You should be ashamed of yourself." Within minutes, the store's district manager was called. The original manager was suspended. And Marcus, he was off. He didn't want free clothes. He just wanted respect. As he walked out, head high, he left them with one final thought. Next time you see a black man in your store, try seeing a hero instead of a threat. The story went viral. Marcus didn't care about the fame, but if his humiliation could change even one person's mind, then maybe his sacrifice meant something more than just a medal. Maybe it meant progress. News of Marcus Johnson's ordeal spread like wildfire. By the next morning, his story was on national news, trending across social media, and even caught the attention of high-profile veterans organizations. The store's corporate office issued a public apology, promising mandatory bias training for all employees. But for Marcus, the real battle was just beginning. 3 days later, his phone rang. An unknown number. "Sergeant Johnson," a formal voice asked. "Who's asking?" Marcus replied cautiously, "This is General Michael Holt, senior military advisor to the president. He'd like to speak with you." Marcus nearly dropped the phone. Moments later, the president himself came on the line. "Sergeant, I heard what happened, and I'm damn sorry," the commander-in-chief said. "You deserve better. This country owes you better." The president invited Marcus to the White House to discuss veterans' rights and racial bias in public spaces. Marcus accepted, not for the photo op, but because he knew his voice could make a difference. Meanwhile, the manager who had confronted Marcus, a man named David Mercer, was drowning in shame. His name had been plastered across the internet. His employer had suspended him, and his family was receiving hate mail. But what haunted him most was Marcus's words. Try seeing a hero instead of a threat. One evening, David showed up at Marcus's doorstep unannounced. Marcus tensed, ready for a confrontation, but the man's eyes were red, his hands shaking. "I came to apologize," David said, voice breaking, "not because I got caught, but because I was wrong. I didn't just fail you, I failed myself." Marcus studied him for a long moment. Then, silently, he stepped aside and let him in. Marcus's story became a rallying cry. Veterans groups partnered with civil rights organizations to launch the See the Hero campaign, pushing for businesses to adopt anti-bias policies and better support veterans, especially those of color. Major retail chains signed on. Politicians reference Marcus's ordeal in speeches, and in a twist no one expected, Marcus and David even appeared together in a viral PSA, urging people to look beyond the uniform, the skin, the assumptions, and see the person. Months later, Marcus walked into the same store, this time in a crisp suit, his purple heart pinned to his lapel. The new manager, a young black woman, recognized him immediately. "Sergeant Johnson," she said warmly, "it's an honor." Marcus smiled, just here to shop, and this time, no one stopped him. Marcus never set out to be a hero, he just wanted to buy a shirt. But his courage in that moment forced the nation to confront its biases. His story didn't end with an apology. Marcus Johnson's ordeal didn't just spark outrage, it ignited a movement. In the months that followed, his name became synonymous with courage, resilience, and the fight for dignity. But for Marcus, the real victory wasn't in headlines or viral moments, it was in the tangible changes that unfolded across the country. After his White House meeting, Marcus was flooded with requests. Veterans groups, universities, even corporate boards wanted him to speak. At first, he hesitated. "I'm just a Marine," he'd say. But his wife, Angela, reminded him, "You're proof that one voice can shake the world." So he stepped into a new role, not as a soldier, but as an advocate. He partnered with nonprofits to create Operation Respect, a program that trained businesses on how to recognize and support veterans, particularly those from marginalized communities. He also worked with schools, teaching students about unconscious bias, using his own story as a lesson in empathy. David Mercer, the former store manager, didn't just apologize, he committed to change. After their emotional meeting, he joined Marcus at speaking events, sharing his own journey from ignorance to accountability. "I was blind," David admitted to a crowd at a diversity summit. "But Marcus didn't just call me out, he gave me a chance to do better." That's the kind of grace we all need. The two men didn't become friends overnight, but they forged a mutual respect. David went on to work with veteran hiring initiatives, ensuring others like Marcus were judged by their merit, not their skin. The retail chain where the incident occurred didn't just issue an apology. They overhauled their policies. Mandatory bias training became standard for all employees. They also launched a Veterans Welcome Here initiative, offering discounts and job opportunities to former service members. Other companies followed suit. A major tech firm revised its security protocols to prevent racial profiling. A national restaurant chain started hosting Veterans Free nights as a gesture of gratitude. The message was clear: those who serve deserve respect always. One of the most surprising developments came from Colonel James Riker, a retired Marine officer and conservative commentator who had initially dismissed Marcus's story as another race card. But after meeting Marcus in person at a Veterans Gala, Riker publicly reversed his stance. "I was wrong," Riker wrote in a viral op-ed. "Heroism doesn't have a color, and if a man like Marcus Johnson can forgive, the least I can do is listen." His words resonated across political divides, proving that change was possible even among those who once resisted it. Amidst the chaos, Marcus found a moment of quiet triumph. His daughter, Maya, graduated with honors, and he stood proudly in the audience, wearing the same shirt he'd originally gone to buy that fateful day. "You're my real hero, Dad," she whispered as they hugged. For Marcus, that was worth more than any medal. Years later, a statue was unveiled in Marcus's hometown, not of him in uniform, but of him reaching out a hand to help someone up. The inscription read, "The true measure of courage is not in the battles you fight, but in the bridges you build." Marcus didn't attend the ceremony. He was too busy mentoring young veterans, pushing for policy reform, and reminding everyone he met, change doesn't start with laws or speeches. It starts when one person decides to see another as human, and because of him, millions finally did. As the years passed, Marcus Johnson's name faded from the headlines, but the impact of his actions never did. The store that once turned him away became a model for inclusivity. The manager who judged him became an advocate for change. And Marcus, he kept moving forward, not as a symbol, but as a man who had demanded the respect he deserved. His story wasn't about a single moment of confrontation, it was about what came after. The conversations, the reforms, the lives changed because one man stood his ground without losing his humanity. In the end, Marcus's legacy wasn't just about challenging bias, it was about reminding us all that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear hoodies, scars, and quiet determination, and sometimes their greatest battles aren't fought with weapons, but with unwavering dignity. His story asks us a simple question: when faced with injustice, will you look away, or will you stand up and make them see you? The choice is ours, the change is possible, and the time is now.